Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. How y'all feeling today? Thumbs up if you're having a good time at Dreamforce, at TDX. Okay, thumbs up if you've learned something new today. Okay, thumbs up if you've met somebody new today. Oh, for those of you who don't have a thumbs up, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And I am so excited to be here with three really incredible panelists. So I will give them a brief introduction and then turn it over so they can talk a little bit more about their own incredible journeys. We've just been talking for 10 minutes. I've already learned so much about them, and so I'm excited for them to share some of their wisdom and their insight with all of you today. So we'll start off with Ms. Michelle Hansen to my left. She is a 5-time certified, just got her 5th certification on Saturday of Service Cloud. Yes, absolutely. Certified individual. She works at NISC, which is a software cooperative in the Midwest. And she started her journey becoming a Salesforce admin in 2017. So in that time, just from 2017 to today, she's been a speaker, of course, here at TDX. She is a lightning champion, a Trailhead ranger, a co-leader of her local Trailblazer community. She's been a presenter on Automation Hour and Admin Hour webinars. She's presented at Dreamforce as well as Northeast Dreaming. So this is just a wealth of information that she's going to share with us today. She's also very active on Ohana Slack and Twitter and enjoys building relationships and helping to inspire the next generation of awesome admins. So can we give a round of applause for Michelle? And so next up, we have the esteemed Mr. Mark Adcock. And Mark is a senior consultant at Aperio. He is also a Salesforce MVP and a Lightning champion. He has a background in information technology and over a decade of experience in higher ed and nonprofit technology. And he's really passionate about helping nonprofits and higher ed institutions move their businesses and their missions forward through digital transformation, connecting their platforms through Salesforce, and integrating their business processes. So big warm welcome for Mr. Mark Adcock, please. And finally, we have Mr. Aaron McGriff, who you may recognize from his recent front page cover stories on the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Aaron is, just in a couple of years, went from being unemployed from back-to-back layoffs to becoming a certified admin, a Dreamforce speaker, a Trailhead DX speaker, a Golden Hoodie owner, and although he won't admit it, obviously a huge inspiration to others in the Salesforce ecosystem. He currently serves as a business analyst in the manufacturing field and is passionate about getting others to follow in his footsteps, blazing their own trails in the Salesforce ecosystem. So a big, warm round of applause for Mr. Aaron McGriff, please. Okay, great. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And would love to just hear a little bit about your Salesforce journey to start. When was the first time you heard about Salesforce, and what did that journey look like from where you are today from where you started back when you first learned about Salesforce?
I think you need to start this.
Okay, so my story with this, I started with Salesforce at a nonprofit. I was hired in as their IT and data manager, which included being an admin for Salesforce. I had never heard of Salesforce before this job, before the interview even. And I started there, went into this role. I was part-time doing admin stuff, and then I actually realized that I liked Salesforce way more than I liked general IT, and made the jump a few years ago out of general IT into Salesforce, then jumped into consulting. I had a single year, I had the single certification last year in January. That was my original admin, and then over the past year have bumped up to application architect among my certifications, and now have 11 certs.
Woo!
Wow.
11 certs, ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't hear that. Thank you. And Aaron, do you want to share with us how you came to Salesforce?
Oh, absolutely. So my background is in criminal justice. My degree is in criminal justice, and I spent 12 years in retail loss prevention. How I got into Salesforce, like, never would have thought this would have been my trajectory at all. But I got into it because I lost 2 jobs back to back. A family member just so happened to be in town because the first niece in my family was born, and she told me about Salesforce. And to be completely honest, when I first heard about it, it went in one ear and out the other. Like, it sounded like something that was too good to be true. It honestly sounded like a pyramid scheme. I was like, yeah, I'm not getting trapped up in that. So I kind of ignored it, and I got another job. And after just under 3 months at that job, realized that that really wasn't where I needed to be and where I wanted to be. And the company just so happens to be a Salesforce customer. So I'm sitting there like, okay, I could be building these things instead of being the end user. And 2 days later, I got laid off again. So that was kind of my sign that, okay, maybe I should start taking this Salesforce thing serious. I got on Trailhead, I started learning. I got on Twitter, which is how I met the amazing Ohana. And I just kept going, started participating in community events and learning more. Got my first certification in December of 2017. And a few months later, less than 2 months later, I got my first job as an admin. And after only being there 4 months, I got a job at a better company as an admin. And yeah, that's kind of my high-level entry into Salesforce.
Amazing. Yes, absolutely. Clap it up. Those are some amazing stories. So I'd love to talk a little bit about the role that Trailhead and the Trailblazer community played in your journeys. And I know we talked a little bit about this before the panel, but what has that interaction been like with you? How do you guys interact in the community and then also with the Trailhead online platform? And what has that meant for you in your journey?
Well, honestly, this conference is what started everything for me last year. I've been certified for 2 years. I got my first certification May 2017. Came last year to TDX, walked away with 2 more certs after boot camp, or before and after boot camp, and I didn't know anybody when I walked in the front door. I actually met several wonderful people from the Ohana the first night it was here, and it just exploded from there. I wasn't on Twitter, I wasn't on Ohana Slack, I didn't know any of these things even really existed in the Salesforce world. And because I met these guys, because I met others in the Ohana, I now have a network of thousands of professionals that I can text or chat or call whenever I need help with something, or it's now a network. If anybody's looking for a job, I can call and say, hey, do you know anybody who's hiring? I'm looking for my next position, or somebody else is looking for their next position. And it's just the connection I made at this conference was such a game changer. I don't know how I did this before that happened.
I love this crowd. Very, very excellent. Love the enthusiasm. Great. Any other Trailhead stories or Trailblazer community stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So Trailhead was my springboard into Salesforce. I really can't put into words how important and how the magnitude that Trailhead plays in really shaping careers. Like I said, my background is in criminal justice. That's what my degree is in. But I was able to go on Trailhead and actually build things that actually work. And that was really a moment of catharsis for me that let me know that this is something that I can do. This is something that I'm absolutely capable of, and it's not out of reach for me. And then my first foray into the Ohana community was actually one day when I said, okay, I need to make myself accountable for everything that I'm trying to learn. So I'm going to talk about it on Twitter, because if you put it on the internet, it never goes away. And if you say you're going to do something, you don't do it, people are going to be asking you what you're doing. So I said, okay, I'm going to tell my story on Twitter. And literally, like, not even 2 hours after I started telling my story on Twitter, the outpouring of support from the community was just, it was amazing. And I said that I feel like I belong to this community. Even before I got a job, even before I got my first paycheck, I felt like I belonged to this community. And that's not something that I had ever felt in my career. And I said before, and I'll say it again, that the Salesforce Ohana is the reason why I'm still here. It was what gravitated me to this community, and it's what keeps me here.
Woo!
So for me, Trailhead didn't come out until after I'd been working on Salesforce for a while. But one of the biggest things I found to add to what's been said already is that it gave me a chance to actually stretch beyond what I knew, because there was sort of a safety net. There were people I could call on to get help with stuff. There was Trailhead that I could go back and I'm like, if I get stuck, I can try to figure this out or get the basics of things. And so that's pushed me beyond where I had worked before. Like I basically said at one point, I never want to be a developer. I never want to write code for a living. And as a result of working with people here, I started doing that, and I still don't want to write code every day, day in, day out. But on the other hand, it's a big portion of my job and my life now, and I'm perfectly fine with that and comfortable because of having a learning platform like Trailhead combined with having a community that I knew could help out and help me figure out what was going wrong and how to fix things and how to get to that next level, and also will just perpetually encourage and push you to see what you can do next and what can challenge you to another way.
It's amazing. We'll leave some time for questions at the end. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you all found your current position and then what your day-to-day looks like in your current position. And I know that is a tricky question because every day is, of course, different. But what are some of the key things that you work towards, the metrics that you drive towards, the goals that you have in your current role?
So the Ohana is like the biggest and best network you can have. And honestly, I got my first position because of someone in the Ohana. I made a post in the success community saying, hey, I have a certification, I need a job. And literally the day after I got my first certification, my only certification until this weekend, because I'm gonna get some more. But literally the day after I got certified, I got a phone call saying, hey, I have a position I think you'll be great for. You wanna come have a conversation? And I had that conversation the day after I got certified, and that ended up being my first job in the community. So yeah, just that, and really the power of networking is just amazing, especially having a community like this. Because everyone knows somebody, and everyone knows of a company and knows of positions. So just utilizing that resource was really more important for me, and it worked for me. And for my day-to-day, like you said, it's hard to say what my day-to-day is because it changes every day. But I went into a company that already had an established Salesforce practice. And so my day-to-day is kind of putting out fires, and then once the fires are out, trying to build new capability and new functionality and kind of change the way that the company uses Salesforce now so those fires don't pop up again in the future.
Right.
So I actually tripped into my job. I actually worked for a software company as an executive assistant. That company got acquired by another company, and I got moved into a sales position and started being a Salesforce end user. A couple of years after that, they said, hey, our admin needs some help and you seem sort of techie. How about you go be a part-time admin with her while you keep your sales job too? So I said, sure, why not? Sounds like fun. And that was probably about 7 years ago. And so they actually finally split my job up 2 years ago at the same company. I've been there for almost a decade. And they said, okay, we need to split this. Sales or Salesforce admin, take your pick, but you can only have one. And I went, admin? And that's really kind of what game changed everything for me. 2 years ago was when I went to training and finally figured out everything that we built wrong the previous 8 years. So a lot of my day-to-day is trying to obviously train new users and help users with problems that they have. But it's also trying to clean up an org. Now that we know better, we need to go back and do it better. And then also, I'm a diehard automation fan, so anytime I get my hands into Process Builder or Flow, that's where I love to be.
So my current job, I was previously a contract worker at a place. When the contract was coming up, I actually went out onto Twitter and said, hey, I'm looking for something else. And I had this outpouring of responses from so many people that I knew. And I talked to a lot of different companies, and it ended up being one of the ones where I talked to a lot of places, and it was picking the one that had the right people fit and culture fit and work style fit that kind of goes along with what you're looking for, because there's lots of places out there, and I think it's easy to rush into the first available option, but in a lot of cases, that for me, taking that extra time to go, well, which is the right fit for me, which is gonna make me, let me be the person that I want to be or try to be, was one of the big things. So that was sort of where I came in, was really, it was huge on the networking side. I didn't fill out a single job application. I didn't post my resume. I barely talked to any recruiters that hit me up on LinkedIn. It was largely based on like reaching out to people in the community and having them reach out to me and say, hey, this is available. I have something here. This company is hiring. My company is hiring. Do you want to talk about it? And that was sort of where I found a lot of my way into my current job right now. As for the day-to-day in the consulting world, you spend a lot of time working with clients. You try to understand what their business processes are. Half the time you're trying to get them to understand what their business processes are, and sometimes you're trying to actually tell them what their business processes are because they don't even have that step laid out. And then it's trying to build out, well, what's the solution? How do we carry this forward? How do we help them improve this? How do we make it better? And how do we help them think strategically, not just because within an organization, you're usually looking at what's happening right now and in the middle of it, and you have to take, as a consultant, and try to take that step back and go, okay, I want you to think about next year, and I want you to think about 2 years from now, and I want to think about 3 years from now, and that's the picture we're going to start trying to build as we go through this. So we want to cover you now, but we're going to cover you 3 years from now.
That's great. And so all of you had experience, professional experience prior to coming to Salesforce. And I know for many folks here at DX and probably many of you in the audience as well, Salesforce is not your first career out of school. And so I'd love to hear about how your previous experiences before Salesforce have helped you in your current role today.
I'll jump in here with a quick story real quick. So one of the things that came up, I work in higher education, and someone was talking about, well, how would we use CPQ in higher ed? And it immediately came to me to talk about intellectual property because that's very complex, a lot of bundling, a lot of workflows and approvals. And someone was like, well, where did that occur to you? And the thing is, that came to me not from my previous IT jobs, that came to me not as a systems engineer or as a Salesforce admin or as a developer or anything else that I've done. It came to me because I used to deliver computers for the University of Virginia, and I delivered to the person who did the computing support for their patent foundation. And I learned all about those business processes. And so one of the things I learned from that particular experience is that all your different life experiences, not just your particular work experience, your professional experience here, here, and here, these can actually add to being able to see a problem in different ways and come up with unique solutions based on all the cumulative experiences you have across your life.
That's such a great point.
I think for me, it came a lot from being an end user of Salesforce because I understood what my users were experiencing because I had to do it. So if something annoyed me to have to do, then as an admin, the first thing I wanted to do was try and fix that. The other thing I think is, when I was little, everybody's like, well, you should be a teacher. You're really good at explaining things to people. And so I've pulled some of that in to not only help with training users, but even to explain to my management team why we make certain decisions the way we do and how to leverage Salesforce the best that we can because they're looking at such a narrow focus. And that's what, each of my department managers need to do. You need to focus on your team. He needs to focus on his team. That's where your focus needs to be. But as an admin, I need to be looking higher and longer distance. I care about what happens 5 years from now. So being able to have those conversations and explain it in those ways, it's really helped me be able to be a more effective admin by getting other people's consensus and getting other people to understand where we're trying to go long term with the solution instead of let's just build this to fix this right now.
And for me, I think working in business for as long as I did, it helped me understand how businesses run. So when I became a business analyst, it helped me to really understand what the different things that businesses ask for and what process they're trying to change or what they're trying to accomplish when they ask for new functionality within Salesforce. So it really helped me with that business acumen. And then having an investigator background, I'm used to looking for fine details, having to solve problems and really dig deep to figure out how to solve issues. And so that helps being on the admin side as well because you have to really dig deep to get to the root cause of things in order to fix issues. So I think that really helped me.
Yeah, those are great insights. And I think so frequently when folks are transitioning careers, they think they're starting from scratch. And as you've all illuminated, that's not the reality. You still take all of your past experiences and skills and bring them with you into your next role. So thanks for sharing about that. I'd love to zoom out a bit and think about your Salesforce journey. And if there was one thing that you would have done differently, what would that thing be?
I would have gone to training sooner, I would have come to any conference sooner, and I would have found the Ohana so much sooner.
Ditto.
Definitely ditto.
And so that brings up a great point. We were talking a little bit about just before we got on stage here, that you all already know each other. And so thinking about the Ohana and some of the things we've talked about and the Trailblazer community, can you talk a little bit about the stories of how you've met each other and just more broadly, how you approach networking? We've talked about it a little bit. Everybody knows networking is really important, but then you come to an event like this and it can seem kind of elusive. What exactly does that tactically mean? So tell us a little bit about how you guys met and what maybe very tactical tips you have for networking.
Well, I met Mark last year, here, as a matter of fact, at Trailhead DX. Like I said, I walked in, I did not know anyone. I went to a welcome dinner that I found on the Trailblazer community. They said, hey, if you're flying solo, you don't know anybody, come to dinner, meet a few people so that there's at least some friendly faces at the conference. And I went, sign me up. I got involved in a Twitter group. They actually do an Ikomo Mai, which is Hawaiian for welcome. Over at the Community Cove at a lot of these events where they'll give you a lei and take a selfie and get you on Twitter and all that fun stuff. And that's really what started this. And so Mark and I kept running into each other as the conference, kept going. And we've been on Twitter groups. We're on the Ohana Slack channel. If anybody's interested, come see me after and we can talk more about that. I talk to him almost every day in one form or another between Twitter and Ohana Slack and whatever else. As far as Aaron goes, I met Aaron today. I have known Aaron on Twitter for, I don't know, 6-9 months,
now?
something like that. When Aaron's journey started, I saw him on Twitter, and he was kind of tangential to my little circle, and my little circle kept getting bigger. A year ago, I had no followers. Today, I think we just looked, I'm close to 900. And it's all because I follow people in the Salesforce ecosystem, they follow me back, and it just spreads.
I actually met people all in person at an event. I didn't have Twitter. I went to an open source sprint held by the Salesforce.org side and met a lot of people in the community there, and then was like, okay, let me try the Twitter thing, and I'd already connected with some people, but the thing is that Twitter network spreads and you can communicate with people across such larger gaps, but also the Trailblazer community or the Power of Us Hub on the nonprofit side, they gave like early insights into being able to connect with people and see. I think when you look at those communities, you get not only like the personalities, but you get sort of what they're working on and what their interests are and what their company does and stuff like that. And so you can get sort of that feeling of, okay, this is someone I may want to talk to about this, or this is someone I may want to talk to about that. And so then you go to an event, you get to run into them and be like, yeah, I stalk you on the Trailblazer community, and but you had something really interesting and I want to know if you had a few minutes to talk about it. And it can make a big impact to have that sort of virtual connection first, be it Twitter or one of these communities, to then step up and work on the next thing.
Before we go to you, Aaron, I'm just curious, how many folks here are on Twitter? Okay, and for those of you who are not on Twitter, how many of you are planning to get on Twitter and connected with the Salesforce community after some of the things we've heard so far? Okay. I'm hearing a trend here that there's a ton going on there. Great. Aaron, will you share with us?
Yeah, so absolutely Twitter. Twitter was my initial meeting for everyone, and it's funny how, actually meeting people in person after you've known them on Twitter for so long. I met Mark for the first time at Midwest Dream, and shout out to Eric Dressfield in the audience. But yeah, you meet and talk to people in the community, and like I said, networking is very powerful, and especially for my generation, social media is powerful. We can see how social media can be used for bad things and to spread bad messages, but you can also use social media to change your own life and to shape your own brand and just to connect with people that you never thought you'd be able to connect with. And then it connected me with the Salesforce Ohana. One example of that is Eric Dressfield. So Eric Dressfield followed me on Twitter, never knew who he was, he didn't know who I was, but he was engaged in my story, and he reached out to me, gave me his cell phone number and said, hey, call me and I can give you some career advice. And this was within my first week of being on Twitter.
Wow, can we give a round of applause for that?
Introduced me to Midwest Dreaming, which I go to every year, and actually I'll be volunteering at this year. But that's just the power of it, and it really connected me to a lot of people in this community, like people that I call my mentors and my heroes, I met on Twitter.
And that brings me to my next question. who is the biggest inspiration for each of you, either in or out of the Salesforce ecosystem? Who really inspires you?
Oh, I'm not going first on this one.
You want to go?
You can go.
I think I can go first. So the big thing about Salesforce is being a trailblazer. And being the trailblazer means that you go places that you didn't think you would be able to go, and you literally create a path. And I think for me, my biggest inspiration was my grandfather. My grandfather was born in a poor southern town in Florida. Literally, his parents worked in fields every day. As a kid, he worked in cotton fields and picked corn and stuff like that all day. And before he passed away, he was actually a federal judge. And when he passed away, they actually flew an American flag in his honor at the Capitol in D.C.
Wow.
And that really taught me that there are no limitations in life to what you can do. You can do anything that you apply yourself to, and that's really what gave me the motivation to continue down this path of going after something that I thought was unattainable for me. And it's because of the trails that my grandfather blazed in his time that I was able to keep myself afloat and blaze trails of my own. So definitely my grandfather.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
Okay, how many of you here are familiar with Jennifer Lee? I think probably when I first got into this, she was my oh my God, this is Salesforce celebrity. And I met her here last year, and it was literally, I fangirled. And I'm like, oh my God, you're Jen Lee. Can I have a selfie with you? And it was just insane because she was like that person for me. And we actually went to Macklemore together last night, and over the past year have become friends. And it occurred to me now that it's just Jen Lee. I mean, yeah, she's Jen Lee, but it's just Jen Lee. I mean, the only thing that's different between you down there and us up here is the fact that we're about 4 feet off the ground and we don't mind talking. I mean, that's really the only difference. So, I mean, honestly, while Jen was probably that person for me, the farther into the community I get, my inspiration is honestly everybody I've met. Everyone I have met, whether it's the college students I was chatting with upstairs at the career fair, or the people just getting started on a career change over at the Community Cove, or some of you that I hope to say hi to after the session, everyone here has something to teach me, and I have something to learn from you just as much as hopefully something that one of us says up here resonates with you too.
I don't really have much else to say that hasn't already been said. There's a lot of inspiration. If you ask me to pick one person, I can't even go. Like, my brain goes here for this, and then here for this, and here for this. So I think I'll pick one point of inspiration that comes out is a friend of mine, Megan Hyman, who is an MVP, was one of those people who helped encourage me from my first sprint that I met. And she brought up the fact that instead of looking for a mentor, or looking for a individual or a inspiration, that you look for people that can inspire you for this and help you with this and drive you with this. And instead of trying to find that perfect individual, that perfect inspiration, you build this entire rainbow of different influences of individuals that inspire you and amaze you and push you and take you to different levels. And so that sort of would be my advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. I've heard that before. Yeah, absolutely. Referred to as like a board of directors. Like, there are just a variety of people with different skill sets and experiences who combined are just a super mentor. And obviously all of you are mentors to many people in the community, possibly some in our audience. We have time for probably 1 or 2 questions. We'll go here and then possibly have time for one more. And then we're going to provide you guys with some resources and next steps. But if you'll say your name and your question.
Hi, I'm Cal. Thank you all for being panelists. And I think it's going to dovetail right into what you're asking for. First, how do we get invited to the Ohana Slack? Second, should we just follow you all as individuals on Twitter, or is there certain hashtags that we should look for, and how do the Twitter groups run to find that? And then thirdly, after you did Trailheads, how did you reach out to the success community? Can you share one of those types of stories right after you were on Trailhead?
Well, I'll take the Ohana Slack question. It's an email address invite, so if you find me on Twitter or come see me after and get me your email address, I will certainly get you involved with Slack. You're welcome to follow me or DM me on Twitter. I have DMs open for everybody. We can get you in the Twitter groups with the Ecomo My. And honestly, it's about like touching one of us, touches all of us, because we're all connected and we'll get you looped into our networks.
I imagine that many of you want to make sure that you're following these fine folks if you're not already. So I'll give everybody a moment to pull out their phones and pull out Twitter or your notepad as we finish the rest of the answers to these questions. And I'll ask you all if you're comfortable to just share what your Twitter handles are so folks can add you. But we'll give everybody a minute to pull that up. Any other thoughts in response to these questions?
As far as like reaching out to the community after you've done stuff on Trailhead or trying to get connected, one of the biggest things is just be open and sharing kind of constantly about your journey, because that will get attention. You know, people are emotional, and so when they see that connection from you and they see you trying to work on stuff, one of the things I learned early on is it felt really good when I had a Trailhead badge and I announced it on Twitter and someone liked it even if I didn't know them. And so it makes a difference to actually get that encouragement, that realize that there's almost everyone who's kind of going through that, and you will have people that you have no idea who they are, but will see that Trailhead badge and be like, hey, this is a great job, share a certification. And like, it's amazing to watch like on LinkedIn that someone shares a certification, and all these people that are secondary, tertiary connections are saying, hey, congratulations. So there's a lot about how to do that with connecting with people that sort of stands out. I think one of the other things is, you know, just sort of sharing your story, and as you connect with people, send them a message and say, hey, you know, I have some questions. Do you have any time to talk? I've done lots of virtual sessions with people where it's a sort of virtual coffee cup session where it's like, hey, you know, I have a couple questions. Can you answer them?
And if I can add anything to what Mark said, it's don't be afraid to post your failures. You know, it's easy to post your successes, and most people post their successes, but you don't see many people talking about the things that they failed at. The first time I took my admin exam, I failed miserably, and that's not something that I wanted to share, but I did, and I got support after that. My tagline, like if you saw the newspapers, has been from unemployed to analyst, and being unemployed was something that was a point of shame for me initially, but that was my springboard moment. Being unemployed led me to be up here talking to you today. So you never know what can happen when you just open yourself up like that. So that's something I can share.
Great advice. Hopefully you all have had a moment to pull out your Twitter or your notepad or wherever it is that you're going to jot this down, and I'll ask you all to just share and maybe spell your Twitter handles so everybody can follow. So whoever wants to start.
So mine is just literally A, the first letter of my first name, my last name, 87. That's it.
McGriff 87.
Mine is Tech Forecast Is. That's TECH, the forecast, FORECASTIS. And that's actually because the whole domain name is the Tech Forecast Is.cloud. And it was a consulting company name that I had at one point, and I continue to use that as my name, domain.
That's where you got that.
Yes.
I learned something new today. So yeah, mine's about like Aaron's. It's M-E, so first and last letters of my first name. And then Hansen, Hansen. I'm Swedish. No, Danish, not Swedish. And then 8, 2.
Okay, Emmy Hansen 82. In closing, we want to share a couple of resources with you all. First of all, there is still a career fair happening upstairs. You'll have a moment to get up there if you want to right after this session. There's lots of employers up there that are looking for folks with a wide variety of skills. I also want to direct you to a new team that Salesforce has started. It's our Trailhead for Partners team, and I work on that team. We work really closely with our partners to help them connect with talent, such as yourselves, in the ecosystem. There's a particular need for consultant skill sets, is what we're hearing from our partners, and so we work closely with job seekers to help them get up to speed, get consultant credentialed, and ultimately land roles in the Salesforce ecosystem. So this short link up here, please note that it is case sensitive. If you don't capitalize the T and the P, it will take you to a dead link. So go ahead and take a photo of that. We'll leave it up here for a moment afterwards. sftc.co/trailhead for partners. You can sign up to stay up to date about different kinds of career fairs and resources that we're putting out to help support you on your journey. You can also engage with us on Twitter, excuse me, hashtag Trailblazer Consultant. And then there's a couple of trails here specific to getting started as a consultant with Salesforce. One that's specific for students, folks who are currently enrolled in an undergraduate program, and then one for professionals, whether you've got 5 years of working experience or 50 years of working experience and you're looking to start blazing your trail as a consultant. So with that, I'd love for us all to give a tremendous round of applause to our panelists here today. I know I have learned so much from them, and I'm sure that the same goes for all of you. Would also like to give all of you a round of applause for making it out here to DX, for networking, for learning all day and all week this week. We're so glad to have you here. We'll be up here for a moment more for questions. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day.